Welcome back. Let's finish this knife. In parts 1 and 2, we assembled and manipulated pattern welded steel into a patterned billet. Then we cut that billet into angled tiles and forge welded them together to repeat that pattern across a blade. But after etching, we found that decarb steel caused bright lines to appear in our pattern, so we started over. So using a similar process, we came up with this unique pattern, which a knife was forged from. We sanded it, we etched it, and then we set it aside to start on the guard and handle. These are the elements of our spacer: wrought iron, brass, and some Damascus I used to forge a fishing lure out of a couple videos ago. We got them shaped up, fitted up, and that's where we left off. Alright, time for part 3. This is where we finish the knife. I'm so happy. This is the bottom spacer. Again, we're going to have to quench this because it's Damascus steel. We want it to etch with some contrast, so it's got to be hardened. We're going to torch temper it down quite a bit, so don't worry, we can still work with it. We're taking our brass spacer and we're going to put some relief in it with this little Dremel cutting wheel attached to the mill. I think you could do this with a drill press too. Similar process with our Damascus spacer, just turning it back and forth. Then I'm going to use a chainsaw file to round it out and give it more relief. All the pieces fit up nicely, so they're going to be etched, and we're going to etch our knife too. At this point, I've gone back and sanded it some more, and we're putting our final finish on it. So there's a couple options with the finish. We can sort of keep this dark black relief, or we can polish it up a little bit and make it a little brighter. Decided to go with this sort of intermediate etch. It's not quite high contrast. These areas are more gray than black, but it's not silvery. It matches sort of the ricasso area, which is why I did that. When this is, super dark, high contrast, black and white, the ricasso area and its decarb really stands out, and I'm not sure I like it like that. So everything's sort of etched to match the ricasso coloration, I think, and I think I'm gonna stick with that. All right, time to get onto our handle. I'm gonna trace out our tang on here, just so we have an idea of where to drill holes and such. I think this is a Boina burl. I don't know. I see a nice piece of wood. I buy it. I forget to write the name on it. And 6 months later, I've forgotten what it is. Maybe it's elm burl, or I don't know. This is a broach saw I'm going to use to clean out and shape the tang hole. If you guys remember, I put guide pins in the spacers and guard to keep everything flush while I was shaping those pieces, and I meant to cut them off and sand them flat with the bottom of that bottom spacer before epoxying them into the knife and the tang, but I forgot, so I've had to drill these last minute guide holes in the handle, and the tang hole is broached a little wide on one side. Many people use those pins as guides for a takedown handle construction. This isn't a takedown handle, so they don't really serve a purpose. It was just too late to flush them up with the bottom of the spacer, basically, so I had to accommodate them into the handle, and that's fine. It's not a big deal. It doesn't look all that pro when it's working its way into the tang hole. I'm peening brass into this 5/32 hole in our handle. We'll drill through this spot when we put our pin in our handle material. It's just better this way. We're going to put a smaller diameter handle pin through this brass. The brass is easier to drill than steel, and if we mess up the handle and have to start it with a new piece of wood, we can take this piece of brass out and put a new one in instead of having to line up a tiny handle pin hole in a steel tang. Hey guys, I want to show something. I've talked about it before, but I use this method. A lot of people use it, where I have feeler gauges on this end. I set the knife here. I'm essentially scribing a center line with this height gauge down the spine of the knife. There's obviously no tape on it when I do it. I'm not actually scribing the spine. I'm just finding the center. So I adjust the feeler gauges up and down on the tip, such as the height gauge is in the center here, and the height gauge is in the center of the knife blade up here. And then I just continue on down, scribing the handle material. So, you know, I'm scribing a center line basically down the handle material like I've done here, so that the center of your handle material is centered with the tip of the knife. That's very painful to get a long way into grinding and maybe even have your handle material fixed onto your knife and figure out that things aren't centered up. The other thing I want to show you is that I've been taping the guard area or ferrule or whatever this is called with this electrician's tape. I think it's electrician's tape. It's thick. You could use duct tape. There's 3 layers of it here. It's enough so that if I'm at a slow grinder speed and I accidentally bump this area, it's not going to leave a mark. And it's uniform thickness all the way around, so that when I start hand sanding, and this is on here, the wood should be, you know, uniform thickness for the museum fit all the way around. All right, sanding it down to 3000 grit. Then we're going to buff it with white compound. I was tempted to put like a true oil finish on this, but it looks so nice I didn't want to change the coloration at all, and I think it's going to be good to go. It's a stabilized wood. Well, as you can see, there's still some silver lines between the final tile welds, and they aren't that intrusive, but if you're like me, you're wondering what I should have done differently. But you're not like me. You're better than me. You were designed in a lab and birthed in a test tube. Every piece of your genetic code is optimized for you to become the ultimate MTV VJ. By the way, I used Oxfo blue on the brass spacer fitting, so it left the inside portion of that a nice deep copper, and I sanded off the rest of it so that it was brass again. Well, that's it. It's done. 3 parts later, lots of mistakes, but what do you guys think?